All right, looks like we're live. Good morning, everybody. Sandy Root here for our Morning Mindset Saturday reading from PSYCHO CYBERNETICS, and I'm taking over for Samantha today. She had a little family emergency she wanted to take care of, so I'll be hosting, and so we just send her prayers to her family and lots of love, and everything will be awesome. So. Yeah, I'm here in sunny Brooklyn. Finally, summer has arrived, and it is the solstice. So, yay! Happy summer, everybody! And so, yeah, I'm here in Brooklyn, and I'll let everybody else introduce themselves and where you're hanging out from today, and then we'll go into last week a little bit and start this week.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Smith from Boise, Idaho, and it's a beautiful day. It's a great day to be alive, so welcome, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Danielle DeLyons. I'm out here in Anaheim, California, very near Disneyland and Angel Stadium, and excited to get this day started.
Good morning, everyone. This is Catherine Clement in Boulder, Colorado, and happy solstice. It's a beautiful day here, and I'm just so looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. So I think last week was a little foggy to me, Dan, because I was in the middle of my own family emergency going on, so I was like in and out, and I have a couple notes here, so I'll talk over a little bit what we went over last week, and then if Dan, if you have anything you wanted to remind us about last week, you can hop on in, or if Danielle or Catherine, if you were able to watch or have anything to say about these topics, feel free. But we started with insecurity last week, keeping your feet on solid ground, and you know, trying to stand on a top of a pinnacle is a sign of insecurity. So really put your feet on the ground, and you'll be more secure and not be so insecure if you're, you know, on solid ground instead of pretending to be on this high pinnacle. And I think then we went into loneliness. And I think all of us really resonated with that. We had each of us, Samantha, I, and Dan had a story about, you know, sort of avoiding others, avoiding social situations at one point in our lives, not being able to contribute to social situations in the way that we wanted to, like a shyness or just a fear of being ourselves in public. And, you know, I really resonated with that because I think I shared last week that, you know, I used to, I think in the chapter he mentioned about wanting to be entertained, and that's how I used to feel. I would just go to places and hang out with people like almost expecting them to be the entertainer, and I just sit back and observe because I was very shy, so I would just observe and watch and laugh and giggle and be entertained by, you know, whatever was going on, but I was never much a contributor to social situations as I am now much more today. So that really resonated with me last week because it was a feeling of loneliness when you know, I would sort of sit back and observe, and I wasn't really a part of the social part. I was sort of out and just observing. So, and then we went into uncertainty about, you know, a lot of times people activate their failure mechanism because they avoid making mistakes or afraid of making a mistake, so they won't even make a decision. So if they don't make a decision, they think, since I'm not making a decision, I can't do anything wrong, or using a scapegoat to blame others for their mistakes, and realizing, you know, nobody is right all of the time. Successful people aren't right all of the time, and you're not your mistakes. So just take the risks to make mistakes so that you can grow and expand and go through those uncertainties, because you'll find that we need to. That's part of life, you know, and we're not going to do everything perfectly. And so just to accept that we'll fail, we'll make mistakes, but we keep on going. So yeah, if anyone has anything to say about any of those things from last week, or if Dan, if you wanted to remind us of anything we shared. Anyone?
You had way better notes than what I've got here.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Cool, cool. All
I
right.
actually just had a chance to watch that this morning, or I got through part of it. It's on pause right now as we come onto this one live. But one of the things that struck me immediately, they say that energy attracts energy, and like, people come together that tend to reflect things for each other. And I thought it was amazing how all of us came from such a very shy place, and we're all using this internet and these hangouts and these internet businesses and things to come out of our shells. And I missed last week being on there, but at the same time, I had a wonderful week being away from the internet all week, so it was sort of an interesting situation to put myself in. And I realized that I was manifesting a wish from many, many years ago, back when I was an RN, and I was working with elders, and I always just kept saying, gosh, I wish I could just sit down and talk with these people and let them share their stories. And that's what I got to do all week. So I was really it was an amazing week for me. But when I came back and I was watching that this morning, I was like, oh my gosh, we all just drew each other together. Just like that, to help us all come out of our shell. And I can't wait to watch the rest of it and see how it all came out. Because Dan, you were on a roll right where I paused it. You were coming off with some really good stuff there. So
thank you. I do have something that I want to say though. I shared a few weeks ago. I think that this is my second marriage, and I'm extremely happy in my second marriage. But I didn't want a divorce. It was something that was thrust upon me, my first wife, and there is an old saying that opposites attract, and the thing that drew me to my first wife was that she was real chatty. I mean, she was just bubbly and up all the time and always talking, and one time I was with her family, and her mother made a statement that if she would just shut up, maybe that nice young man would be able to get a word in edgewise. But that is my natural state. I mean, even doing these hangouts and that is actually going against what is my natural tendency is to be a wallflower, so to speak, to be back in the just hang out in the shadows. And so anyway, I just I don't know why that just popped into my mind. I thought I'd share with with everybody, And also, the failure to make a decision is a decision. Sandy, you mentioned that earlier, and I am really guilty of that. It's if I don't make a decision, then nothing will go wrong. I won't screw anything up, so in the meantime, in a sense, you're failing because you're not going forward, because you don't make a decision and move forward in a decision. I have a lot of sayings around my house. I have 3x5 cards. I've got them everywhere. I've got a whole, I've got a stack of them right here, and some of them may only have 2-3 words on them. Some may be filled out both front and back. But now I lost my train of thought where I was going with that, because there's a saying that I've got on one of my cards that it just runs along that line, that failure to make a decision is a decision, and it's better to do something poorly than to do nothing perfectly. That's what it was. It's better to do something and do it poorly than it is to do nothing but do that perfectly. So, just go ahead and make mistakes and move forward through your mistakes. So anyway, I'll hand it back over.
Cool. Yeah, that reminds me when I was young too, when I was very shy. It was I wouldn't make decisions either. It was like, Mom, you decide for me, or somebody. I was just so afraid of everything. I was afraid to speak. I was afraid to be myself. I was afraid to make decisions. Like, not a fun way to live. So I'm just gonna say hello to everybody who's on the page over here real quick. We got. Hold on a second here. Vicky Divorce watching. Good morning, Vicky. She says good morning to the panel. And David Bazo. Good morning. Kay Brown is in the house. Good morning, Kay. Mary Owens, she says it looks like we are all shy. Israel Wilson, good morning. And Mary Owens again says it's nice to know that I'm not the only wallflower. LOL. So awesome. Thanks all of you for coming. And anyone else who's out there, feel free to chat on the wall and say good morning. And if you have any comments throughout the Hangout, you can leave them over there. You guys can help me monitor them. Catherine, I see already posted there, so that would be awesome if you help monitor. Let's see. So we're starting on, where are we today? We're in Chapter 9. I guess we're more towards the end of that. We're on the bottom of page 171. I guess I'll start with reading, and then if there's more later, somebody else can help. So we're starting on the section called Resentment. And this is the new PSYCHO CYBERNETICS for all of you out there who have the book. And if you'd like a copy of the book, we can send you a PDF once you're a part of the Google Plus group. So you can just go on over there, join us, and let us know that you need a copy of the book. So resentment. When the automatic failure mechanism looks for a scapegoat or excuse for failure, it often serves up society, the system, life, the brakes, luck, the boss, the spouse, even the customer. People in the firm grip of their automatic failure mechanisms resent the success and happiness of others because they are proof that life is shortchanging them and they are being treated unfairly. Resentment is an attempt to make our own failure palatable by explaining it in terms of unfair treatment, injustice. But as a salve for failure, resentment is a cure that is worse than the disease. It is a deadly poison that makes happiness impossible. Met? Hold on a second. Like Met hopped on and Met? I'll go mute him myself. There we go. Okay. Good morning, Matt. Glad you hopped on, if you can hear me. Let's see. Hold on a second. Got to find my PDF again. Okay. Okay. It is a deadly poison to the spirit, makes happiness impossible, and uses up tremendous energy that could go into accomplishment. Quite often, when people came to me in my practice requesting surgical correction of insignificant imperfections on their faces magnified by their imaginations, conversations with them led to a realization. They disliked what they saw when they looked in the mirror, not due to the reality of the reflection, but the resentment harbored for just about everyone in their life and their life circumstances. Resentment is a way that fails. Resentment is also a way of making us feel important. Many people get a perverse satisfaction from feeling wronged. The victim of injustice, the one who has been unfairly treated, is morally superior to those who cause the injustice. Resentment is also a way or an attempt to wipe out or eradicate a real or fancied wrong or injustice that has already happened. The resentful person is trying to prove a case before the court of life, so to speak. If he can feel resentful enough and thereby prove the injustice, some magic process will reward him by making the event or circumstance that caused the resentment not so. In this sense, resentment is a mental resistance to, a non-acceptance of, something that has already happened. The word itself comes from two Latin words, re meaning back and sentire meaning to feel. Resentment is an emotional rehashing or refighting of some event in the past. You cannot win because you are attempting to do the impossible, change the past. Resentment creates an inferior self-image. Resentment, even when based on real injustices and wrongs, is not the way to win. It soon becomes an emotional habit. Habitually feeling that you are a victim of injustice, you begin to picture yourself in the role of a victimized person. You carry around an inner feeling that is looking for an external peg to hang itself on. It isn't easy to see evidence of injustice or fancy you have been wronged in the most innocent remark or neutral circumstance. Habitual resentment invariably leads to self-pity, which is the worst possible emotional habit anyone can develop. When these habits have become firmly ensconced, a person does not feel right or natural when they are absent. They then literally begin to search for and look for injustices. Someone has said that such people feel good only when they are miserable. Emotional habits of resentment and self-pity also go with an ineffective, inferior self-image. You begin to picture yourself as a pitiful person, a victim who was meant to be unhappy. The real cause of resentment. Remember that your resentment is not caused by other persons, events, or circumstances. It is caused by your own emotional response, your own reaction. You alone have power over this, and you can control it if you firmly convince yourself that resentment and self-pity are not ways to happiness and success, but ways to defeat and unhappiness. As long as you harbor resentment, it is literally impossible for you to picture yourself as a self-reliant, independent, self-determining person who is the captain of his soul, the master of his fate. The resentful person turns over his reins to other people. They are allowed to dictate how he shall feel, how he shall act. He is wholly dependent on other people, just as a beggar is. He makes unreasonable demands and claims on other people. If everyone else should be dedicated to making you happy, you will be resentful when it doesn't work out that way. If you feel that other people owe you eternal gratitude, undying appreciation, or continual recognition of your superlative worth, you will feel resentment when these debts are not paid. If life owes you a living, you become resentful when it isn't forthcoming. Resentment is therefore inconsistent with creative goal striving. In creative goal striving, you are the creator, not the passive recipient. You set your goals. No one owes you anything. You go out after your own goals. You become responsible for your own success and happiness. Resentment, oops, sorry, my page scrolled up really fast all of a sudden. Okay, you go out after your own goals. You become responsible for your own success and happiness. Resentment doesn't fit into this picture, and because it doesn't, it is a failure mechanism. In a sense, there is no justice, but we may manufacture just results for ourselves. It is fact that by the very act of birth, one person is unjustly set out to begin a hard life in a ghetto filled with street crime, while another born in a cross-town hospital that same moment will begin life in a safe suburb. One will go to school in disrepair, the other to a school with every modern advantage. Similarly, it is a fact that in many sales offices, leads are disproportionately or unjustly distributed by the sales manager or her pets, and those in her doghouse. It is a fact that promotion in corporate settings frequently occurs due to factors other than pure merit. We could go on and on. There's no denying injustice. If you intend to insist on justice in order to live a successful and happy life, you will not do so in this lifetime, on this planet. The other day, just after emerging from my New York townhouse, wearing a brand new, beautifully tailored suit out of the wrapper for the very first time, en route to an important luncheon engagement, a passing taxicab roared through a muddy puddle and splashed dirty water all over my pants. It occurred to me a more just arrangement would be if taxicabs only splashed puddle water onto people wearing old work clothes already soiled, only if on their way home, so that changing out of them would pose no inconvenience. Maybe I should lobby the mayor to pass such a law. Of course, I was helpless to undo this unjust incident or to do anything to eradicate this injustice in general from being part and parcel of living in the city. I could certainly be more careful in the future, but that was neither here nor there. The immediate choice before me was to spend the rest of my day frustrated, angry, bitter, and resentful, or to recalibrate and take whatever constructive actions possible to get back on track toward an enjoyable and productive meeting. I admit it's easier to react this way to such a minor injustice as taxicabs, puddles, and soiled trousers than to racial injustice in society or bureaucratic injustice in your career. But the outcome will be the same. The fundamental choices are the same, and you can enjoy the powers of your automatic success mechanism only if you choose to rise above injustice, small or large. Over years, PSYCHO CYBERNETICS has found its way into quite a number of prison inmate counseling programs, classes, halfway house classes, and the like. I suppose thousands of copies of my books have been donated to prisons and to individual prisoners. Even today, the PSYCHO CYBERNETICS Foundation does not deny sincere requests from inmates for the book. As a result, I've had many conversations with wardens, counselors, pastors, and others working in this environment, and naturally the subject of recidivism comes up often. A great cost to individuals, families, and society is the majority of prisoners who, once released after serving time, fail to stay straight and wind up back in prison again and again. I have become convinced that recidivism is nothing more than resentment realized. If a person emerges from prison into society with his resentments intact, resentment against his upbringing and background, his prosecutors and jailers, his current lack of resources, the difficulty he faces in gaining others' acceptance and trust, etc., he is nearly certain to commit new crimes and return himself to prison. Only the rare individual who manages to cleanse herself of these resentments and recalibrate is able to stay straight. Similarly, any individual who permits resentment to control her thoughts locks herself and her potential into a prison of her own making. She is her own hanging judge, discompassionate jury, and jailer. Wow. That was a lot, but awesome stuff. That reminded me of a quote I've heard a few times. I can't remember who said it, and it's more about anger, but how when we're angry at someone, we're the one that's hurting ourselves. It's not hurting the other person at all. So it reminded me of this. Hold on a second, my doorbell's ringing. Can somebody else hop out for a sec?
Yeah, I'll jump out. Go through some things that I had noted here. I thought it was interesting. The word resentment comes from two Latin words meaning back, and sentire, however that's pronounced, meaning to feel. So resentment is an emotional rehashing or a refighting of some event in the past that you cannot win because you are attempting to do the impossible to change the past. And I went through a period of a lot of years of anger in my own personal life, and it was, I shared that I went through divorce and that it was thrust upon me. I didn't want to divorce. My first wife left me, but even other issues that went back further than that. As I shared that last week, I shared that my last name's Smith, and I grew up being programmed hearing that the Smiths are quiet. The Smiths don't talk much. Well, the fact is, my father died when I was 10 years old, and I have memories that go back to at least the age of 3, and my memory's pretty good in that respect. So going back through my memory banks, living in the same house with my father, that I can't account, being really generous, I cannot account for more than 150 words that my father ever spoke to me in 10 years. And so I went through a tremendous period of anger in my life, reliving all these questions that went on in my mind. Well, what did I ever do to him? I mean, how come he wouldn't talk to me? And all these different questions. Well, all I was doing was reliving the past, something that was, from prior to the age of 10. You can't undo that. You can't, there's no way of fixing it in a sense. And then, some other issues that I'm not really going to go into today, but with that, with my wife leaving me back 15 years ago, there was a tremendous sense of anger and resentment towards her for bailing out the way that she did, and excuse me. But there's here I'll share something with you. This is a scripture passage. It's in the book of Proverbs. I can't tell you which one, but anyway, it says, "Whoever has no rule over his own spirit is like a city broken down and without walls. And if you can't rule your own spirit, you're compared here to a city that's broken down. And in that ancient culture, walls were there for protection. And if you live with resentment, you've broken down your own walls. You've kicked out the foundation of your own walls, laid them over, and laid yourself bare. And I had to personally come to a point where I could forgive my wife and forgive my father, forgive my mother, forgive everybody who I'd ever felt, had wronged me in any way. And those feelings would come back up, but it's a conscious choice, it's a conscious decision to say, no, I forgave that. That's in the past. I can't do anything about that. And just in the last 2 weeks, my ex-wife, she'd married another guy. Well, he's been running around on her, has a girlfriend in another country, and so now she's going through another divorce. And in the past, I would have said, yeah, payback. Serves her right, That would have been my mentality, but I can honestly sit here today and tell you that I am honestly sorry that she's going through this pain. But had I not reached a point where I didn't resent anymore, where I could honestly forgive from the heart and let that go, then I wouldn't be able to sit here and honestly tell you that I wish that she wasn't going through this pain now in her life. And so that's a choice that we make, and reliving, one of the things I think that like the post-traumatic stress syndrome, the soldiers coming back from war, what are they doing? They're reliving in their mind. They're looping all of the horrors of the war, and their subconscious mind. You've heard the subconscious mind can't take a joke. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish whether it's going on only in your mind or whether you're actually living it in reality. And so they're looping over and over and over and over. I'm sure we've all had that experience where something traumatic or semi-traumatic, happens in your life, and you keep reliving it over and over and over and over again in your mind. Maybe even days afterwards, and it's the same mechanism, the same function as resentment, and not turning that loose and not letting it go. So anyway, forgiving people and then forgetting about it. Maybe you can't forget about it, but you can make that choice, conscious choice to forgive, and you don't do it necessarily for that person's benefit. You have to do it for your own benefit, because otherwise you'll screw up a perfectly good present from going over the past over and over and over again in your mind. So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah, that was great, bringing in the forgiveness part. It just reminded me of something recently. I had an ex-boyfriend reappear in my life, and it just brought up all the old pain inside of me, and the stuff that I forgot about just started resurfacing, and I lost focus on my business, on where I was going and stuff. And thanks to stuff like this, these calls and being on Hangouts and doing personal development daily, I was able to really get out of it quickly. No, don't even go there, Sandy, and rehashing the past, looking at the past, and you bringing up forgiveness is huge. That's what we need to do, is forgive it. It's in the past, and where are we going forward? I'm a completely different person than I was when I was in this relationship, and for that I'm grateful, because I can look at it and be like, wow, look at the things I allowed in this and how it came to where it came to, and so I'm grateful for it now, and I forgive them. And also important to forgive ourselves, because a lot of times through feeling resentment, we're beating ourselves up big time. Ugh, and then, just forgiving ourselves for even having the feelings of resentment. Okay, I'm human. I had these feelings. It doesn't feel good, and I got mad at myself. But okay, cool. I forgive myself. Let's move forward and stop looking at the past. So, yeah, great point on forgiveness. That's huge. I'll let the next person go.
I wanted to add something to that also, because I recognize that in us we individually changing and forgiving and going forward and getting over resentments, we have to come to a conclusion that other people also may go through those. So even like what Dan was saying, his ex-wife has changed through her own pain, and maybe she's even that much more comprehensive of what she did to him at that time, the feelings she generated for him, because now she's experiencing maybe not the same exact scenario, but it's humbled her in a way too. And you can't go back. I went through that for years with my mom, where she disassociated from me, and it was very, very painful. I had a lot of resentment. And I kind of let her go for about 7 years, and I just recently reestablished a relationship with her. And I still find myself stamping it from old past experiences of behaviors and reminding myself I can't go back and base it on that. If you've really moved forward, you have to look at that person with a new sense of being for your own sake sometimes. And it's these kinds of lessons, or hearing from other people and relating it to different parts. You don't know who else is going through that same experience. It helps us to heal and be better and remind ourselves. Sometimes we just need a little reminder, okay, that's right, I don't want to go back to that feeling again. I don't want to revisit something I can't change. And I'll hand it over to somebody else. I don't know if you guys heard me okay.
Yeah, no, we did. Sorry, I was just thinking.
It's okay.
Someone else is popping out. Okay.
We did. Thanks, Danielle. I was about ready to say I haven't heard from Danielle this morning. Wow. Resentments can just eat somebody alive, you know. And all of us have things happen to us in our lives that we have to move on from, you know. And I think that's part of it happening, and that's part of the whole process. That's part of learning how to forgive others, learning how to forgive ourselves. And I don't know about you guys, but personally, it's much easier for me to forgive somebody else than it is for me to forgive myself. For some reason, I hold myself to these higher standards or something like, well, you know, you should have been better at that, or whatever it is. But that's why this kind of work is so important, and that's why we're here on Saturdays, and that's why we're doing this kind of stuff every day. I think I can speak for everybody here that this isn't just a Saturday event. You know, we read these kinds of books and we listen to audios and stuff every day, because we're learning about ourselves. We're learning how common we are together. You know, we loosely use the term "we are one," but we really are one, and we're so much more alike than we are different. You know, if we can just realize that. And part of helping us really, you know, look at all these very, very shy people who, if we met in a room before all of this, we probably wouldn't even have spoken to each other. We would have all been sitting back in our corners watching what was going on in the room, you know, and here we are talking, sharing, you know, seeing how much alike we are. And I just think, as anti-internet as I was, I'm really glad I opened up to it because it's really made a tremendous difference in my life. And I'm a total hermit. I mean, I'm not even a wallflower. I posted over there on the community. Anybody that knows me knows I seriously, I must have been a monk in my last life or something, because I can totally just be by myself forever and I'm just like, you know, just like complete peace or whatever. But you don't get too far that way. That's one of the things that being around other people, it brings up some of these things, but that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You need to find, you know, if you just are by yourself all the time, none of these things come up, they never get triggered. You know, you have to be with other people to kind of have that mirror to show you, oh, well, yeah, I thought I got rid of that 20 years ago, but looky here. it's rearing its ugly head again. And just to be kind with ourselves and remember that, you know, like you said, Dan, it's a daily process of forgiveness. You don't just forgive something and, oh, that's done. Because in your mental mind, yeah, it's done, but our subconscious is so much bigger. I forget what the numbers are, but they say that we really, for everything that our subconscious and our mind and everything is taking in, we're aware of such a very tiny, tiny part of it. So all these things that we do, that we actually know that we do and remember that we do, that's a very, very tiny part of what's really going on. So we have to constantly, and what I find in my life, I don't know about you guys, but I find that situations, these same lessons come back to me with different faces, and that's how I realize, oh yeah, there that is again. But it's just something within ourselves that we need to love and forgive. Usually, oftentimes it's my part in it that I haven't forgiven that makes it keep coming back. So I'm really thankful for these discussions where we can, I really am truly grateful that we get to heal some of these things within ourselves with each other. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. A lot of what you were saying is reminding me of stuff I'm reading in this book called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem by Wayne Dyer, and really talking about, how our problems are in this lower energy. They're in this material blue. But the higher energies like forgiveness, love, gratitude, they're in the higher frequency, in the spiritual frequency. And, really learning how to be in that energy field so that we're not in this world of where things seem like such a problem, to bring them into the higher frequencies. And the story that was just shared in PSYCHO CYBERNETICS about the muddy pile going on this guy's suit reminded me of a story that I read from Wayne Dyer in the book yesterday, where he was at, I guess he was speaking somewhere in Peru, and he was on his flight back and he was in a hotel in Chicago, and I guess he got in his room at 2:03 and wanted to order a sandwich, and they said, well, the room service just closed at 2 o'clock. And, at first he was like, well, it's 2:03. I'm sure you have some food laying around. I could get a sandwich. And they wouldn't budge. So, he got angry, and then he was on his way out to the elevator to go down and just yell at them and be aggravated. And but then he remembered what he had just spoke about in his conference, and he said, you know what am I doing? So he just started to think about what he wanted. Yeah, it would be great to have a sandwich. Instead of being in the lower energy, he just thought of his intention and let it go and just decided to be happy and just put his intention out there that he wants a sandwich. And the elevator opened, and he saw this guy with a buffet of food, cleaning up a buffet, and he happened to be from Peru. And Wayne Dyer's like, yeah, I was just in Peru, and this guy was so excited that somebody was in his country speaking, and so he's like, what do you want? Or I think Wayne asked him if he could make him a sandwich from what was left on the buffet or whatever, and I'll pay you whatever you want. And the guy's just like, no, I'm just so happy that somebody went to my country, and he made them like this great sandwich and handed it to him. So it was just a cute story of, how as soon as he dropped the resentment, the anger about not getting a sandwich, and just put the intention out there, like the door opened and there was this magical encounter. So just how things can be very synchronistic too when we're letting go of these lower energies, and in the higher energies, it's just like the synchronicities are just amazing. So thought I'd add that in. Does anyone else have anything to say on this part, or we can go on forward into the next part a little bit? Excuse me.
Yeah, I had a situation yesterday. I had to go to Department of Motor Vehicles here, and I was there for 2 hours, and after waiting that period of time, I still didn't have the documentation they needed to accomplish the reason I was there, and at first I was really upset. I was not happy because it took so much of my day away. But then I recalibrated myself because I had the opportunity, because I'm in business for myself, so I have to meet new people every day. I happened to meet 2 new people while I was there, start great conversations, get names and numbers, connect really well with them in that time. I had to go back and remind myself that, well, maybe I was here, you know, for this purpose, because one of those people had gone the day before and it hadn't worked out, and he had come back the next day. So I kind of turned it into a positive thing and said, well, see, we were both supposed to be here today. And so, you know, we can find ways in our daily situations to look for positive reasons to not dwell on the negative aspects that do happen quite frequently, and look for those. So I've gotten better over time of always trying to find the good and the bad and focus on that good.
Yeah, awesome point. Yeah, I think, you know, with the resentment, yeah, we can have those huge ones from like relationships and stuff, but then there's the little ones like that, like being stuck somewhere where we don't want to be waiting in a long line. How can we turn that around and find the positive in it? Because, yeah, there's always a different way to look at things. So how can we look at it differently and have better results and find the synchronicity in things that are there to help us forward? So
that's kind of, oh,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead, that's fine. It says only the rare individual who manages to cleanse herself or himself of these resentments and recalibrate is able to stay straight. Similarly, any individual who permits resentment to control her thoughts, his thoughts, locks themselves into their own potential and their potential into a prison and make of their own making. They are their own hanging judge, discompassionate jury, and jailer. So we do it to ourselves. That was the last portion of that, what we'd read earlier. It's a prison of our own making, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
For sure. Definitely feels like that when we're in it. It's like, I'm trapped. Catherine, did you have something?
That's kind of what happened to me while I wasn't here. Last week, a friend of mine needed to go out of state, and her grandmother lives with her, and so she was so distraught she needed someone to help, you know, and so I said, well, I'll come over there. Well, I assumed that I was going to be able to work while I was there. You know, I work on the internet. Oh, no problem. I can go. I can work while I'm there. But I get there, and the internet, like, it was taking like 30 minutes to even have 3 letters come up as I typed. You know, I mean, it was just like no internet. And so I was like, that's okay. That's okay. I don't need internet. I got my phone. Well, then I dropped my phone in a bucket of water, right? And I was like, holy shit. So I was like, wow. But that's one thing. I've become quite adaptable with some of the challenges that I've been given in this life. So I was like, wow, this is really, you know, I am not supposed to do any business. I am really just supposed to focus on being here in the moment, here and now with this lady, and just a beautiful 92-year-old lady I spent 5 days with, and all we did was sit around and talk, and you know, she told me stories and stuff, and I realized as I was standing looking out the window at the beautiful mountains, it was an amazing environment, and I realized that I think I mentioned this earlier, I was really manifesting something that I had wished for years and years ago, was just to have that time. Because I was working and I didn't have the time to actually connect with my clients, and I had 5 days of nothing but time, and I know it meant a tremendous amount to me, and I know a tremendous amount to her, and it was just such a gift. So sometimes those little inconveniences turned out to be the sweetest gifts of all, I think.
For sure. That's awesome. Cool. Let's see. Should we go forward or stop? It's 10 to 11. We can do this one little section here. Does anyone else want to read, or?
I'll be happy to do that. How far do you want to go down, Sandy? Down to the box, to the training exercise?
Let me see. My screen is being wonky right now. Well, that's a few pages, huh? Just Yeah, I'm debating whether even to start this whole section or not. We can just go like the first couple paragraphs here and just
Okay.
real quick, like up to where life becomes worthwhile. So just like the intro
Uh-huh.
part of emptiness
Okay.
and discuss and the column.
All right. Emptiness. Perhaps as you read this chapter, you thought of someone who had been successful in spite of frustration, misdirected aggressiveness, resentment, etc. But do not be too sure. Many people acquire the outward symbols of success, but when they go to open the long sought-for treasure chest, they find it empty. It is as if the money they have strained so hard to attain turns to counterfeit in their hands. Along with the way, they lost the capacity to enjoy. And when you have lost the capacity to enjoy, no amount of wealth or anything else can bring success or happiness. These people win the nut of success, but when they crack it open, it is empty. Those who have the capacity to enjoy still alive within them find enjoyment in many ordinary and simple things in life. They also enjoy whatever success in a material way they have achieved. Those in whom the capacity to enjoy is dead can find enjoyment in nothing, be it a $1 ice cream cone or a $1 million mansion. No goal is worth working for. Life is a terrible bore. Nothing is worthwhile. You can see these people by the hundreds, night after night, knocking themselves out in nightclubs, trying to convince themselves they are enjoying it. They travel from place to place, become entangled in a whirl of parties, hoping to find enjoyment, always finding an empty shell. The truth is that joy is an accompaniment of creative function, of creative goal striving. It is possible to win a fake success, but when you do, you're penalized with an empty joy.
I guess you can read this next section up to the next bold point, and then we'll stop there.
Okay.
Thanks.
Life becomes worthwhile when you have worthwhile goals. This is the psycho-cybernetic secret to keeping your automatic failure mechanism safely asleep, not troubled by any assignment from you and not troubling you with the result of its labors. Life is worthwhile only when you have firmly fixed in your sights worthwhile goals. Emptiness is a symptom that you are not living creatively. You either have no goal that is important enough to you, or you are not using your talents and efforts in striving toward an important goal. The person who has no purpose of her own pessimistically concludes life has no purpose. The person who has no goal worth working for concludes life is not worthwhile. The person with no important job to do complains there is nothing to do. The individual who has actively engaged in striving toward an important goal or goals does not come up with pessimistic philosophies concerning the meaningless or the futility of life in general or his life in specific. Of life. Even the most elderly can and do operate as goal-striving, optimistic people. A wonderful trend has been the migration of retirees to small college towns where they pursue goals of learning, education, mastery of interesting subjects, acquiring some skill they never found time to previously pursue, even mentoring others. Earlier in this book, I described the 4 steps of the learning process. Aliveness is based on constantly setting new goals and then moving up that 4-step ladder of learning in order to effectively pursue them. Is that where you wanted me to stop?
Yeah, that's good, and we can just discuss for a few minutes. Yeah.
You know, it popped into my head. I don't know how many are familiar with who Louise Hayes is, and Catherine and Sandy. I know you know who that is, based on Wayne Dwyer, because he talks about her a lot. And she is such an amazing lady. She's in her 90s, and I just love her soul and her example, because I watched a video interview with her not too long ago, and at 90, she was learning for the first time to play the piano. and how she's constantly got a bucket list of goals, and that's the difference between people that are achieving and going forward. You know, if we just merely stopped, and I learned to do this years ago, I made a huge list of things I want to accomplish in my life, and I still have a lot of them to go in my life. But because I put that goal out there that these are things that interest me, these are things I want to do, I don't have a reason to give in to a daily failure mechanism. It's a daily achieving mechanism that I work from, and I think that's the difference between those that are alive and those that are already kind of the living dead, so to speak. They're always looking for new things that they can learn and go out and achieve. And that just struck me right when we read that part of the chapter right now.
Yeah, for sure. Great point. Yeah, definitely having those goals and always striving for something is important. You know, we all hear the stories of the person who got their dream job, their house, their picket fence, their kids, and then they're like, okay, like miserable and not fulfilled because, you know, they didn't set their own goal striving mechanisms. And so, yeah, it's super important. Great chapter. Anyone else want to input for now? Or I can check the group page too.
I think I've been very blessed in finding happiness from very simple things, and that came from, well, we just sort of had to do that when you're you're broke. You better figure out how to be happy with the simple things, or you're just going to lead a miserable life or something. I don't know, but constantly moving forward, and that doesn't have to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be in business or, you know, striving. It doesn't have to be a money goal. Like you said, and like Louise, you know, learning to play the piano. I got a cello for my 50th birthday. You know, I'm not a musician, but I love the cello. I always wanted to play the cello. So it can be anything as long as you're not stagnant, you know, because you're actually never stagnant. You're either moving forward or moving backwards. You're either living in the present or you're living in the past or you're projecting into the future, but you're always doing something. You know, you're either bringing good things towards you and asking the right questions, or you're throwing up blocks. And one of the things that I have to constantly remind myself, because I forget to ask, I just forget to ask. You know, when I'm faced with a situation that is challenging, or I just things aren't working out, you know, sometimes I just have to remind myself to stop and ask, okay, what are the possibilities here? And how can I do this? Instead of, this is too challenging, or, you know, I can't do this, or some of those sorts of processes. So remembering to ask, I think, is really important, because you know, it's amazing and it's magical, but when I ask, I get answers. They just like fall into my lap. I don't know how it happens, but it happens. So work that magic and don't forget to ask.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Remembering to ask. I'm the same way when things get challenging and stuff. I forget, and then I always have the Law of Attraction book close by, and this Wayne Dyer book is really great reminder of that too. And then when I remind myself again, I'm like, I could have been asking this whole time, but you know, just keep. That's why it's important to keep being on these things, keep reading, keep doing audios, because you'll just keep reminding yourself, and eventually it'll get in there and stay in there. So yeah. Good.
I wanted to jump one in on that too, because I think, and you're hitting it on the nail, the more you're reading and becoming and understanding yourself better, and I'm sure you've experienced this, books will jump out of the shelf at you if you have them. Yeah. And they will magically open to exactly the page, the paragraph, the sentence that you need to read, because you're asking, and you'll have your answer so quickly. I can't even begin to tell you how many times that's happened for me once I understood how it works, that attraction law. And I'm happy for anybody listening in on this today, because just start practicing that very simple ask. And a lot of things in your life change very dramatically, very quickly, just by that simple action.
Awesome, yeah, for sure. I saw Catherine clapping there because she understands about the books popping off the shelf. Yeah, I've definitely experienced that too. So, yeah, Dan, do you have anything to close on up?
Yeah, you know, I've had the same experience. I actually feel like I've drawn books to me, and you know, it's really strange, but you know, I was on Mindset Call a couple mornings ago, and that a lot of us are on, and the gentleman that conducts that call says that he's got a huge library and he never pays more than like 65 cents or $1. Well, I've got, I don't know, somewhere 400 books, probably very easily, but you know, I hit all the you know, here in Idaho we have what's called the Idaho Youth Ranch, which is and we have Deseret Industries too, which is the one he mentioned, but a lot of thrift stores, and my wife absolutely loves thrift stores, and so we go to the thrift store, I head directly to the books, and she goes and looks at the junk, you know. so I buy all these books for, you know, like I picked up a couple of books 2 nights ago for, you know, one for 65 cents and one for 33 cents because it was half off, you know, and I may read a whole entire book and one sentence. Only one sentence in that book. I read that whole book, but there was one sentence in there that spoke to me, and that was what I took from that book, and it was well worth the investment of time, in my estimation, to read the book because of that one sentence. But Catherine, I understand exactly what you're saying about that you take joy and pleasure in the small things. I have to admit, I'm not money motivated. Money doesn't motivate me. And I'm extremely satisfied with life. I have a great life, and yet I have these driving goals. So I see in myself a dual nature, and I can be a hard driving person. I got this mentality that no one can outwork me. I can outwork anybody, you know. So I have that dual nature that's happy with life, and I can be satisfied with very, very little. And yet there's a driving nature in me that has a bigger purpose, and that's not just so that I can drive Cadillacs and vacation in Europe or whatever. I don't care about that stuff. I honestly don't. But I have that dual nature inside of me, and something that when y'all was talking that came to my mind, you know, that a pond stagnates. If fresh water's not moving into the pond and moving out at the same time, the pond becomes stagnant, and moss grows in it, and mosquitoes breed there, and it can actually begin to smell bad. So along the same line, a moving body of water becomes purified. You know, a river is actually purified as it moves along, and that our lives are very, very much like that. That if you don't have the next goal, and the vast majority of people have no goals in life whatsoever beyond getting their next paycheck. And that's the extent of their goals in life. Most people never write their goals down. And it's extremely important to write your goals down on a piece of paper, look at them day after day after day, go over them in your mind, visualize yourself, see yourself in the completed state of living your life, the dream goal, whatever you're moving towards. That keeps it fresh in your mind all the time, and it moves it into the subconscious portion of your mind where, as I said earlier, the subconscious can't take a joke. The subconscious can't recognize the difference between whether you're actually living it or whether it's only taking place within your own mind, and will actually move you towards the completion of that goal. So anyway, that's all I got, and I'll turn it over to you to close it out.
Cool. Yeah, the book thing is awesome because I just was remembering too that the book that I mentioned before about, I always have to think of the name. There's a spiritual solution to every problem. I was with my brother last week, and he wanted to get a book, so I just went to the bookstore with him, and I had a couple books in mind, but I wasn't sure if I was going to get anything. And I saw them there, but then this book just was there, and I picked it up, the Spiritual Solution book, and I was flipping through it, and I was just like, couldn't put it down. I'm like, okay, I need this one apparently right now, and it's absolutely perfect for this time. So yeah, it totally jumped out at me, like you said, Daniel. Say, me, you want me. So I'm going to see what people are saying in the group, and then we'll close on out. Let's see. So we had Salim join us. Hello, Salim. Or Salim. Hope I'm saying your name correctly. And Vicky DeVore said, great comment, Dan. Thank you. At some point. Vicky, again, as they say, forgiveness is more for yourself than the other person. It does not negate what happened. It only allows you to let go of what happened. Just my opinion. Indeed, Vicky, it's totally frees us up when we're able to forgive. And Eli, hello Eli, thanks for coming. He says, hey guys, how is everyone doing? Glad to be here listening to PSYCHO CYBERNETICS. I have this on my Audible on my iPhone. Great read. Awesome. So that is everyone's comments for today. Thanks for everybody who watched and came out, and Samantha will be back next week, and we will see you then. See you in the group in the meantime. Have a great Saturday.